everybody. Let me not stop screwing around. Welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome to episode 125. All right, guys, back again with a very special guest, a recurring guest. Technically, it's her third time, but it's her second actual episode. It's my mother. You can say hello.
Hello, everybody.
So the reason why I wanted to have her on was it was something I thought about a while ago. Because there's a lot of people in the world that don't really get a lot of notoriety for what they do, and I don't mean like as an individual, but as certain professionals. And obviously, during this period of time, COVID has bothered a lot of people, but a lot of people that have gotten screwed over in this whole thing is nurses, obviously, and doctors, and many other people, but nurses specifically. And so I wanted to have you on just to explain your journey of why you wanted to become a nurse and all that. And so, like, one of the things I did remember, if I remember correctly, weren't you like kind of squeamish with blood?
Me? No, never.
I always thought
Wrong
you.
person.
Okay, no, I don't know. Maybe I guess I have the wrong. I thought you were like, especially with when me as a kid, I thought maybe you were kind of like, I didn't think you didn't like blood or something.
No, it's probably if you were getting stuck with a needle or something.
Okay,
I was
needles, that's
upset
what it
because
was.
you were crying. Something that might have been it, but no, blood never
yeah.
bothered me.
Yeah, I think that's what it was needles. You were kind of whatever, even if it was because of me or Christina, it was just needles in general. And then the irony is you have to give a lot of them.
It had to do with my kids. It had nothing to do with me. Just when you guys were stuck, you guys would scream and cry, and I always felt bad as a mom. That's all.
Yeah, but I mean, the fact that you have to give it to other people, still, I mean, but, so what actually made you want to become a nurse? I mean, I know the answer, but, you say it.
Well, I was thinking about that today. I, I had to find something that I think I would enjoy, but I had to find something that I could take care of my children. I told you, and I think I said it before, I wanted to be a role model for you guys. I was in my own bad situation, nothing like what you have dealt throughout the years, with your disability. But I felt almost like a failure as a mother because I was at home and I was getting out of a relationship, and I had to figure out how to take care of you guys. I take that back, because I actually decided right before I got out of this relationship, I actually decided I wanted to go into nursing. And it was actually kind of something that I always wanted to do. And I think when I really decided was the time when you were sick and you spent, 3-4 months?
4.5.
At St. Chris. Pardon?
4.5.
No, it wasn't that long.
Yeah, it was.
3.5.
It's
3.5 to 4 months at St. Chris.
Okay.
But anyway, it was a long time. During that time, I was just watching. I was watching the nurses and just, I don't know. It was something I always liked taking care of people, and I thought maybe this was a good profession for me. So I decided to try it. Again, I don't know if I said this in the last episode, that when I finally got the courage to go back to school, I wasn't in school for over 25 years.
Yeah.
And when I was in high school, I never went to college.
You're in your 40s when you did it, or was it your 50s?
I was in my 40s. I think I was 42. I was in my 40s. Yeah, I was in my 40s when I went back to college. Excuse me. I went to see, I forget what you call it now, counselor. Went to see a counselor at CCP. It was an
College of
elderly,
Philadelphia, for those who don't know.
Thank you. Is an elderly gentleman, and I spoke to him, and I told him my fears, being out of school, etc. And he said, "Well, maybe this isn't the thing for you to do." So, that a red light bulb went off. Oh, and I thought, you know what? here's another man in my life trying to. I felt like I was being put down. I felt like I don't know how to explain it. And I just thought, you know what? I'm going to show you. I'm going to show everybody in my life that I can do this. So I decided to sign up. Was the biggest thing that I ever did in my life. It was the hardest thing I ever did in my life. And it's funny, not funny, because how I remember the start of my schooling was not only was I scared to death, it also happened with the 9/11. And I don't know if you remember that, TJ, because they sent you guys home from school, you and
Yeah.
Christina,
Yeah.
your sister, and they sent us all home. And that was my first, I believe that was my first semester of school.
Well, that's how long ago that was. That's crazy. It doesn't seem like it's been that long.
Yeah, yeah,
22 years or whatever it's been. 21 years.
yeah, because I've been a nurse over 16.
Yeah.
So during that time, got through school. I had my own little thing I set up of, I had a printout of what classes I had taken. Being out of school over 25 years, unfortunately, you have to take other classes. So I had to take some general biology and some math courses. I don't put letters and numbers together very well.
Before you
So
start,
not my.
this was like, because I know what relationship we're talking about, but like you just got out of a relationship, and obviously there was a lot of, money issues as well, like another pressure to actually like pursue it, because it wasn't like you were like well off financially. You weren't like broke, but you didn't, like, you had another reason, even though it was going to be a long way until you actually made some real money out of it. But wasn't that another decision? Like you wanted to actually, do something more with and actually be able to provide more, because you said you were like as a failure as a mother and all that.
You just made me cry.
I didn't say you were a failure. That was your words, not mine.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about, just it's like flashbacks right now of,
Yeah.
Getting out of a bad relationship, worrying about money. You had these people in your past put you down, um, that made you feel like a failure. I wasn't supposed to do this. Sorry.
I didn't know you were going to. I didn't bring it up for you to
I
cry.
didn't either because it's kind of flashbacks for me. It was, your grandfather died. Two of my very good friends died during this time. Your grandmother, she got ran over by a vehicle, a van, I believe. She crawled to the side, ended up fractured back on her foot, ankle. I can't remember. There was so much stuff going on. But I was determined, and I had you guys looking at you guys every day, looking at me. And that is what got me through it. That is what pushed me. I couldn't fail you guys. I felt like I had a lot on my shoulders. But I also tried to think, I looked at you and I looked at other people that had disabilities. And, my life could have been worse. It could have been worse. I'm not dealing with a disability.
Yeah, and Christina at the time, she was dealing with seizures too. She's over them now,
sister,
but she had them really bad at that time.
She had the absent seizures. I think, I don't know if
Epilepsy.
you remember, didn't she try to stab you or something? She tried to stab the TV,
I think it was the
so many
TV,
things.
but the scariest one that I don't know if I may have mentioned on here, but the scariest one where I knew it was really bad is where one time she was just going up the steps and then she just stopped and then fell backwards. It was like, oof. Like it was really scary.
Yeah, they say it two different ways: absence or absent seizures. You do grow majority of the people, and I believe I don't want to say all,
Right.
but you can grow out of them, and I believe it's. I don't know if I have my age right. I believe it's by this time. I don't know if it's 5 or 9. It was an odd number. I'm an even person, so I know it was an odd number. I can't remember 5 or 9 years, but she ended up growing out of them, and it happened right before she went to school. But yes, so dealing with your disability. Remember, I think I stated in the other episode that we also changed your days. Your days were now your nights, and your nights were now your days because of your vision.
The sensitivity to
So
the
we're
light,
also going through. Pardon?
the sensitivity to the light at that point. My eyes were much worse than they used to be as far as that goes, the sensitivity part.
Yeah. And so we were dealing with, or I should say we, we, you, me, and Christina, we were dealing with that and dealing with her seizures, and then your grandfather died, and then trying to get through school, and then, at the time, then bad relationship, blah, blah, blah. It was a lot going on. It was a lot. It was a lot. But we did it. We did it as a family. We did it together. And I'm trying not to cry again.
Right. But how overwhelming is that to like start from the beginning, essentially, like where you have to start getting your first class, your first books, like, and I'm sure there's a party that's looking at like the end, like, oh, it's going to be another 4 or 5 years until this is done. And like, you need like a solution now, but it's not going to come now.
I'm not sure if I understand it completely, but I was lucky enough. I did get into a relationship. The gentleman had a lot of money,
Yeah.
Did help some occasions where I couldn't pay for rent or not rent, mortgage. That I try not to do too often. It was an ego thing for me.
Yeah.
I did get luxury things, that. I did what I had to do as a mom. And I'm not sure where you're really going with this.
No, what I mean
question.
is, no, I wasn't going with that. I don't, not even just the financial part, but like, again, like you're talking about wanting to provide and wanting to, just make a change in your life and our life and all that. And now you have to like essentially start from the beginning. Like you're taking your first class, and I'm sure like you would have loved to just like flip a switch and now you're a nurse and things could change. But now you have a realization of, okay, I still have another 4 years to go. Like, was there like a real mental, like, because I mean, I'm sure some of the anxiety I got from you, because I've seen you have them back then, with some of your tests and, no, I'm not blaming you. I'm just saying like some of your tests and your classes, and you're really anxious to passing. And, but yeah, was there a certain like anxiousness to, because again, we all kind of sometimes like to look at the end, the end of the rainbow, I guess, but you have no choice.
I'm a bad test taker, so I was a mess before every test, and then with all the stress of the personal stuff along with it, whether it was financial, whether it was you guys, excuse me, you and Christine and your illness, or whether it was a bad relationship, there was always that stress there.
Yeah.
I played a game with myself in a sense where I had this, I took print out, but I actually had a booklet from CCP, Community College of Philadelphia. Excuse me. I had this where, so you open this booklet up. So what do you want to call it? The classes that you need to take. And it would list the whole classes. And of course I had to add additional, since I was out of college, not college, out of high school for so long, I had to take additional courses. So I added them on. So I played this little game with myself. Like, okay, check. You did it. You did it, Pam. You did it. I did the next check after I got through that class. Checked it. I put an A, a B, maybe a C, back up to an A, whatever. I played that game with myself saying, how many more classes do I have left? I would know how many more. Every time I got done with a class, I remember just checking that book off. I don't even know. I may still have that book. I would check it off. I would also put my grade. And this is how I actually got through it. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. You had something to like. It's almost like a video game type of thing. Like you're looking to get past the checkpoints.
And it was, I didn't get it from around me, so it was my way of patting myself on the back.
Yeah.
It gave me self-satisfaction every time, knowing that I got through this, and I did it on my own. I did it. Nobody did it for me. Not that anybody ever did stuff for me, in that sense, but I did it. And it was like, wow, it was helped with the self-esteem that was battered. I had battered self-esteem for different reasons. And it helped build me up.
Yeah.
No. I keep trying to keep myself from crying. I apologize.
Yeah, she's a very emotional lady.
It's bringing up a lot. But now I look back and I think, I don't know what I would do differently. I don't know what I would do. I mean, maybe pay attention to my children's feelings a little more. You going through, it's funny because I was thinking about, when you mentioned about doing this with you, and I crack up every time I think about it, because I think different things that I would say to you, and you would look at me, or you would say to me and say, Mom, stop doing the tough love thing.
Hmm.
And I crack up thinking about that all the time, because I did. I tried in my own way. Maybe not the best at it, but I did try. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think you tried that more later, and
Hmm.
towards the end of
So,
my teenage years and adult years, but you actually kind of
yeah.
babied me as a kid.
So eventually I did get my nursing degree. When I graduated from college, one of the proudest moments, you were there, your grandmom came, your sister was there. Um,
Yeah.
then, then I had to take my boards. That was another feeling like a failure again.
This is to become a
That was
registered nurse, right? An RN.
a registered nurse, correct?
Can you
Correct.
tell people what the difference is between an LPN and an RN is, besides the pay?
Um, Pay, there's a big difference there. I think they're slowly trying to wean out LPNs. It's a shame, because all the LPNs we had were amazing workers at our hospital where I work.
Yeah.
Uh, the difference is in nursing. There's different things that they can't do. They can't push certain drugs. Just certain things that they cannot do
Mm-hmm.
that we can. So that their pay was a lot less than ours, unfortunately. And they were great. And LPNs are great nurses.
Right.
A lot of LPNs, I think, work in nursing homes now, because
Okay.
they weaned them out at our hospital, unfortunately.
Oh, that sucks. You were how long were you an LPN for? I know you'll get
I
into
was
the whole
never an
boards.
LPN.
Oh, you weren't?
Oh, no, no, I went right straight for the.
Well, what was that? Because again, you were getting into your boards, and I know you failed them a few times. But what was what do you call yourself when you were like you weren't necessarily registered as a nurse, but you were still working at the hospital because you failed the boards, but you were still working, right?
I worked as a nurse's aide. I had to
Okay,
continue,
that's what
and
you
that
were.
was.
Okay.
And again, there's the failure feeling. Um, I failed my boards. So the people that I graduated with that actually got a job at the hospital that I worked at, they were working as nurses, and here I was still an aide. And you have to reapply. It costs money. It's not cheap to reapply, and you can't do it right away. It took
Wasn't it like
I don't know
90
if it was
days or something
two.
like that?
I think it was about 3 months. I think it was about 3 months that I had to wait and take it over again.
Yeah.
To make a long story short, I failed. I believe, I don't know if it was 2 or 3 times.
It was at least two. I know for sure it was at least two, but two or three.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It was 2 or 3, but I was determined. I was determined not to feel like a failure again. I don't want to feel like that's the worst, horrible feeling. Um, I was not only out to prove to you and your sister and everybody else that put me down. I needed to do this for myself too. I needed to do it for me. And the best feeling, probably the best feeling I ever had in my life, was when after I took my board, whether it was the third or fourth time, I can't remember. Um, I came home from Atlantic City. I was there for the weekend. You were there. Yeah, you were over 18. You were there by yourself, I believe. I came home. You handed me this envelope and you gave me a hug.
Well, no,
Why?
I gave you a hug once you read the results.
No, are you sure?
Yeah,
I thought you
no,
gave.
because I
Oh,
wouldn't have
did you?
known what it said on it because
Oh,
I didn't have a thing to read it at the time. So, um,
okay,
yeah,
okay.
so
Sorry,
you opened it and then read it to me, and you said I passed, and that's when I gave you a hug.
okay. I was thinking that you knew because of the size of the envelope, but
No,
you handed it to me. But it was weird because you handed all the mail. You handed this envelope to me. That's what was strange to me. It was almost like you knew.
yeah, it was just probably good timing, and I mean,
Okay.
just a
Well,
good
I looked.
feeling. No, I do remember like you actually read it because I wouldn't have jumped the gun and just immediately assumed that you passed because that would have been really bad if you didn't pass and just get your hopes up.
hmm And the funny thing is, so in nursing, I think they changed it now, but it was either you had 75 to 265 to up to 265 questions that you had to do. And the very last question, of course, me, here I go again, bad test taker, 265th question was about a rare disease that I actually happened to read the night before. Never heard about it. Happened to read the night before that I took my board.
Do you remember what it
That was
was?
my very last question.
You remember what that condition was?
Oh,
It's okay if you don't remember. I just
I can't because
no, it's okay. I
we're
just thought maybe
talking
that's
about
something would
the
stick in your head just because it was the thing that
mirrors.
got you over it.
It was almost. Oh, I almost had it. I can't. Oh, can't think. Sorry, but anyway, that was my 265th question, and that's what I passed my boards on. I know you think I would know it, and I do, but right now I
No, it's okay.
can't think.
I mean, it's a
Sorry.
long time ago. I just didn't know if that would stick in your head or not. But
And it was a
I,
long,
I think once
it
you
was a
were
long
done
trip
with
to
it, you were
Virginia.
done with it.
Yeah, no, I'll think of it, but I'll probably think of it when we're done.
That's
But
okay.
anyway, so
So what was like your
then
first day like? Your first day as an actual registered nurse, if you
a
remember.
mess, a mess. I was a mess. I didn't feel like I get great clinicals when I worked, so I didn't feel like I knew enough. I I I was trying not to go back into that what I call the failure mode. Feeling like a failure. I said it was the scariest moment at my age, and I was in my 40s. I was in my 40s, and it was scary. But I have a great team that I work with at the hospital. I don't want to mention it, but I have a great team that I work with, and they got me through it. There's one person who really got me through it, and I still contact her. She retired. I call her Mama Sue. We all called
I
her
know who
Mama
you mean.
Sue.
Yeah, I met her.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I remember. I met her before.
Okay. So she she got me through it. She said, there's some strong personalities here. I'm like, yeah, I see. Um, and she put it in a nice way, and she just walked me through it. She walked me through it. She told me, when you're writing, one of the hardest things as a nurse is when you have to write uh, about a patient. And she said, write it as if you're telling a story. But anyway, she's the one that got me through it.
That's good.
And the first day, and the second day, third day, it got easier. They tell you the first year is your hardest year, and then that's true.
Yeah. Do you feel like you learned
Like,
anything from those years or the months or however long it was of you being a nurse's assistant?
you mean as far as nursing?
Yeah, like before you actually passed your boards and you were just a nurse's assistant. Like, did you? Was there a lot of things that you picked up on that actually really helped you when actually becoming a full fledged nurse?
There are certain things, cleaning up a patient, certain things like that. But your priorities are so different from as an aide or as a tech to nursing. Your responsibilities are different. Your duties are different. Um, I, I, it taught me, I guess it taught me how to treat patients, and listen to their needs or what they want and what they need. I think that's what I got the most out of it.
Yeah, because you're probably
If that
more
makes
likely
sense.
to listen to them and hear them because you're kind of at the bottom. But when you see everyone else making what they're making and doing what they're doing, you kind of I don't know. You probably make more
Oh,
relationships and you get to because you basically have to be all ears if you want to learn and actually make it in that type of field.
yeah, yeah. You have to be open, but you might get a little riffraff over that, TJ. What you just said about at the bottom,
Okay.
because no, I'm just saying because
I'm not saying they're janitors.
I
I'm just saying, like technically, as far as in the nursing field, like, I mean, it doesn't mean they don't work hard. It just
yeah.
means, I mean, yeah, go ahead.
No, I knew what you meant. I knew what you meant. I'm just saying that, but and that's funny because a lot of the aides actually are going to school. There's a lot of aides that are going to nursing school, and that's how you you work your way up.
Yeah.
You start, and you said at the bottom, you start at some level. You have to start somewhere.
Right.
You always, in any field, you have to start somewhere. You can't go from point A to point C. You have to go to A to B first.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you have to work your way up.
Did it motivate you though to see a lot of, I mean, I know it was depressing, but to see all your peers, the ones you graduated with, all, pass and become a nurse, and you're, behind in a way, like, did it motivate you to actually work harder, and then eventually when you became a nurse to really prove yourself?
Not sure how to answer that, and I'll tell you why. Because I don't know what. I think it wasn't about those people. I felt ashamed. To be honest with you, I was ashamed. I was ashamed because my children, because I felt like I left you guys down. I was ashamed as a woman, as a person, because I felt like, what, am I stupid now? I can't pass the boards. What's going on here? I mean, maybe this isn't for me. And then I kept saying to myself, yes, it is. This is what you want. You've been in bad situations before. You can do this. You can do this. I was talking in my own head. I was talking to myself, trying to pull myself up and out of whatever I was doing.
Yeah.
That was a horrible feeling. Worst.
Yeah, it was
Worst
mainly
ever.
to prove to yourself, not to anyone else.
And back to that again. At the same time, proving to others too.
Right.
I don't want to kid myself here, but that is also to prove to others.
Yeah.
And prove to myself.
Do you remember
So,
like the first thing you really got good at, whether it's, doing IVs or bandaging or whatever? Like, was there one thing that you really like took to quickly?
yes, listening to my patients and speaking to my patients. We, as nurses, people don't understand how we are getting from a hospital is about numbers. Patient care is so different these days as from what I hear from nurses that have been nurses for 40 years. It's different now. We do care as nurses. We can't spend the time with you as patients as much as we like. We want to spend more time with the patients, and we can't because everything's about a number. It's about how fast can we get a patient in? How fast can we get a patient to a room? How fast can we get this patient in? How fast can we get this patient out?
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's pretty much everywhere. It's just, in your
It
case,
is.
it's life or death type situations sometimes.
Yes, it's not just my hospital I work for.
No,
So
I know. Yeah.
I'm not I love where I work. So I'm not putting the hospital down per se. It's this is the way it is throughout the hospital system, the medical field.
Right.
And
No.
if I sound a little angry, I am, because as a nurse, I want to give everything to my patients, what they deserve.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's really hard, and I feel bad about that.
Well, I think one of the biggest, for someone who, for me, I've been in the hospital many times. One of the most frustrating things is when you get in a room and you're just like another person, and they treat you like, okay, here, they just stick a needle in you. There's not much conversation. It's just like, on to the next person. And it's just as if they don't care. And
But
the people that go above and beyond, like you and many others that have, that are in that field, who actually try hard to bond with the patient and make an effort to even care about them, it does soothe you and make you feel more comfortable, because you're already uncomfortable. You're in a hospital, and regardless of what you're there for, it's nice to know someone actually is taking an interest and wants you to get better, and not just, oh, okay, who's up next on the docket.
it's almost, for us, it's almost robotic, or like an assembly line, next,
Yeah.
next. And that's not the way it should be. It just shouldn't be.
Yeah.
And because it's also, we have to be careful because we are being pushed above, from whomever. And this is where mistakes are being made and can be made by nurses
Yeah.
because we're being pushed. And it shouldn't be.
Yeah. Before we go deeper into that, one thing I didn't ask you in the beginning is so why did you choose ER nurse?
The main thing is I get bored easily.
Fair enough.
I When you are on the floor, I feel it's more repetitious. And you have to remember, I worked as an aide. I worked multiple floors. And the funny thing is that right when I passed my boards, I, I was pulled to maternity quite a bit, and I was pulled to the ER. And I spoke with somebody. I said, I just passed my boards. They said, okay, but you'll have to work night shift. That they pretty much said I would be hired for maternity night shift. I said, okay. At that point, I was ready and I knew the people. And excuse me, they the very next day they got the walking papers. They closed maternity. So now I'm thinking, oh boy, where am I going? I can't do the floor. So luckily, I was working in nursing. I'm sorry, emergency room, and they knew me well enough and how I work. I feel I have good work ethics. That all comes from your grandmom and your grandfather. Um, I'm not afraid of hard work. So I was lucky enough they hired me in the ER. And this I found this is home to me. This is where I belong. I Like I said, I get bored very easily, so I like not knowing what's coming through the door. And even some of that is repetitious. When you get somebody in that has chest pain or somebody with abdominal pain, there's a certain workup that you do, and that's kind of repetitious that way. But you still don't know what's coming through. You don't know if somebody's coming in and, I hate to say it this way, but pumping on the chest and, doing compressions, and you never know. I mean, they're supposed to call you ahead of time. You don't know that. So there's some excitement with the variety of stuff that you see in the ER.
Yeah, for sure. What again, I don't want to hone on too much on the money part, but what was it like to get that first like paycheck that was like decent, past all the other paychecks you got? Because again, the reason I bring it up is because you were so worried about providing, and obviously you had a guy at the time who was making money, and now you actually could provide for us and yourself. What was it like was it like satisfying to see your first like real paycheck that meant something?
I'm going to describe it this way, TJ, that I get a lot of students um, uh, working with me at the hospital. And when I tell those students, I said, it, being in the medical field, being a nurse, if that's what you truly want to do, that's your passion, that's great. Keep doing it. If it's something that you're in for the money, you're in the wrong field, because you'll burn not only you out, you won't be good to your patients. And I also tell them, you know what? You don't need a man anymore.
Yeah.
You can pay your own bills. You can buy your own house. You can buy your own car. You don't need somebody. Wanting somebody is different, but you do not need anybody.
Yeah.
You now can, that was my satisfaction through my checks coming in, knowing that I no longer needed anybody. And that's it, financially, I meant.
Yeah. No, I
Does
got
that
you.
make sense?
Yeah. No, like I said, I know the money wasn't the biggest thing, but I know it had to feel good that like, okay, now these checks are much larger than they used to be, and you didn't have to struggle anymore, and you didn't have to rely on anyone else. You can actually take care
Nope.
of your kids and take care of yourself on your own.
That was the best feeling,
Yeah, I'm sure.
And also, like I said, trying to be a role model to you guys.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you were anyway, but I know you took it on yourself, and a lot of your disappointment was more in your own head. But I know how that feels. So I'm not going to talk about putting things in your own head and talking yourself into things that aren't necessarily there. I do that to myself all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But you talk like repetition, like, I thought about this because I recently got some blood work done, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, and there was a guy, he came in and he just did it so fast. He just put a needle in, took the, he dabbed it with the gauze on, but he did it like so quick, he barely was even looking, but he was so professional. He was so good. Like, how long did it take for you to actually just be good at like, everything? You said the first year is always the most challenging, but how long before you actually got really comfortable and you started to really like succeed at what you were doing?
I don't. You know what? In the emergency room, I don't know if you're ever comfortable 100%. If I haven't had what I call a code, somebody, they bring somebody in doing compressions. If I haven't had a person in that capacity, sorry, poor choice of words. If I haven't had somebody that ill, for a while,
Mm-hmm.
and they brought somebody in and they're doing compressions, I'm going to be nervous. I'm going to be nervous because I have to, I have to get my mindset in a different, routine than what I'm normally doing is, putting an IV in, okay, their abdominal pain, draw blood and whatever else I have to do. It's completely different. So I don't know. I don't think I want to say I'm not 100%, what do I want to say? 100%. I don't know. I don't know if I want to say confident. I don't know. I just lost
Yeah,
my
because
train of
anybody
thought.
could screw up at any time. But I mean, you
Of
have,
course.
but you have to be way more comfortable than you were. I mean, like you said, your
Oh,
day one, you were a mess.
definitely, definitely. Like I said, it's a given even with physicians that come out of school, and a lot of our residents become our physicians now, are attending. Even for them, they'll tell you it takes a good year to have some sort of confidence. You, in the medical field, I believe if you're overconfident, you're going to make mistakes. Some people are a little too cocky for the britches, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't think you can make a mistake, you're wrong. Any one of us can.
Yeah.
Any one of us can. I've seen mistakes made by what we call seasoned nurses. Nurses have been nurses for over 40 years because they've been rushed, because they're overwhelmed.
Overworked.
Overworked. Staffing has always been a big issue.
Yeah.
With nurses.
Yeah, I know one of the big worries is not that what nurses do. I mean, some do, but one of the big worries is, nurses taking medication and all that, and because I know it just.
You mean drugs? Nurses taking drugs?
Just taking like little stashes of medication for themselves. But I know there's a lot of nurses that, including yourself, not that you've taken medication, but there's a lot of nurses that have gotten hurt, and a lot of times to cover up some of the pain is okay. I'll just take a painkiller just to get me through my shift.
Well,
not saying it's right. I'm just saying
that's another story.
Right.
That's hard.
No, I'm not saying it's right, but I'm just saying that's like a real issue because with you, like you've gotten hurt many times, right?
Oh, yeah, I had neck surgery because of a work injury.
But you've had other injuries too, because I think didn't you have a shoulder problem? Like you had a lot of injuries, like
I broke I broke my arm, but that was here at Virginia, and then I had back injuries. Yeah, but I don't take anything stronger than Motrin, except for when I had my neck surgery. I took a couple things. I don't like how you feel.
Yeah.
But
I know you've had like back pains and things. Maybe it didn't translate into like a really bad injury, but I remember there was a lot of times you were just really sore and.
I have back pain right now. I have a chronic back pain, but it is what it is. And but what you're saying is, that is true. Where you're talking about nurses getting addicted. Are you talking about nurses in general, or are you talking about people in general?
Well, people, of course, but mainly nurses, just because I know that's a big worry of just because don't they have some sort of computerized system to like figure out where all the medication is, like the stat, like, I can't think of the term, but isn't there like certain drawers and things, and you have to keep a track on what is all there, and if anything's missing, they have to figure out where it went.
Well, there has been nurses that have stolen, did I say that word? Stolen drugs. And unfortunately, the entire people that work in that area have to pay the price. We walk, let me put it this way. I have to watch what I say because this is a podcast.
Right.
we have to account for every drug now that we pull, and if we just have to, because we can get in trouble for it. So narcotics with nurses now, I think walk on thin ice, or walk on the edge, I should say, because we have to watch the drugs that we pull. A lot of drugs you have to have, if you have to waste a med. So say your doctor orders zero point 0.5 milligrams of Dilaudid, and they only have 1 milligram, you have to waste it with a nurse. That's a given that you have to do where you pull the med. But if I put it in my pocket and forget, what am I going to do? No one's going to sign off on me. You have to do everything in front of a nurse. Do you remember when I went with Shelley for our 50th birthday? We went to Paradise Island, and we rented a limo going to the airport. And I just remembered I had some morphine that I never wasted with anybody. I had it. When I had it, I put it up in the hutch. I went far enough away, nobody would find it and see it. I hid it. I called my boss and said, "Oh my goodness, I was in the limousine on the way to the airport, and I said, I have this morphine that I didn't waste." And he said, okay. Back then, we were okay, and they believed us. But since there was one incident where a nurse was stealing drugs, you can no longer do that. We would be written up. We would be drug tested. Multiple things would happen.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, no, I do vaguely remember that, actually, because I remember you were really panicky about it even after the fact.
I was a mess.
Even when he said it was going to be okay, I think you were still you were worried about it, thinking that it still would come back on you somehow.
I was, but I still had fun when I went away.
Well, yeah, I mean, girls' day out.
But yeah, I was worried about that. I didn't want to lose my job. Right. I worked too hard for it.
Right. Well, the reason why I brought that up is because there's, again, I think a lot of people know how hard nurses work, but they don't know to some degree. And I'm sure it's probably not hard to get caught up in that mess with the medication, because again, you do suffer a lot of damage to your body and mentally. Like, you get worn out, you work 16-hour shifts back to back, and you're just tired, and you haven't slept very well, and your every part of your body hurts, and now you have to lift up patients, and you're looking at, the first hour of your next 12 to 16-hour shift, and you're just looking for something to take the edge off. Again, regardless if it's right or wrong, it's how people get caught up in these things. There are people that have problems well before and all that, but I'm talking about the people that are just working their ass off every day, and they just need something, because it's got to be hard just doing what you do, and you care about it. But if your body is just so torn up, when you're at the beginning of a really long shift, it's got to be hard to pull yourself through it and get yourself mentally and physically prepared for a long day.
Yeah, I'm probably going to hang myself here, but and you're right, and that it's not just nurses. And I know you're focused more on nurses, but it's also people, working class. That's how they start out, and right. I do blame the medical field. Stop giving the narcotics out. Stop. They have to stop. They have to figure something else out, but stop giving the narcotics out. And that's how it starts, because of a back injury, because of a leg injury or a hip injury. For me, I'd rather go home and drink a beer or two, or a glass of wine, and relax. Yeah. That to me is more satisfaction. I get more satisfaction than. I'm not a big pill taker. Never was. Never will be. Motrin's probably the strongest that I really will take if I need to, but it does happen in the medical field. It does happen out in the real world. People are using the drugs.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of drug seekers that come in. And now it's to the point as a nurse, sometimes you question, maybe there really is something going on with this patient, or are they looking for the drugs? I try to ask questions. When a patient starts telling me, first of all, when they start saying they're allergic to certain meds that are not narcotics, then that's like a red flag to me. Or if you would come in and say, they come in for something, and I would go to give them medicine, I would tell them what I'm giving them. I like to tell the patient I think they have a right to know what's going into the body, so I tell them what they're getting. How many milligrams? Okay, well, there's another red flag, another possible drug seeker.
Yeah.
I had a patient that was a nurse that would come in, but because of the information she was giving me, where's her location, where she was from, um, you know, just different things she told me, another red flag. So drug abuse does happen in the medical field, probably much more out there than I'm aware of because but uh, it's out there. It's just out there.
Yeah. I believe you told me this. Isn't there like a certain time, like before your work shift, you're not allowed to drink because they test you?
Yeah.
Because I know you drink beer. You're not a crazy drinker, but I mean, like you would come home and have a beer, but it would be late at night or whatever. But like, isn't there like there's a certain amount of hours or so you can't drink at all, right?
Well, no, no. Well, the thing is, when they test you, you cannot test positive. So I was looking and researching just so I wouldn't get in trouble. It's like you figure if you had one beer, you figure you can't drink. Say you had 4 beers, you better plan on at least 4 hours before your shift. You're not drinking.
Okay, that's what I mean. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I thought that's where you were heading, but
yeah.
you shouldn't drink a lot anyways the night before your shift because then the next day, first of all, you feel lousy. But yeah. I mean, there's been people that have got caught. They had a good time the night before, and they came in and they did a spot check on this person, and they don't have to have a reason. They try to say that they don't know who they're picking. It's kind of a random check. I disagree. We all disagree because they hit people when they get mad at management or management gets mad at a certain person.
Yeah.
It seems funny they get drug tested the next day. But for a nurse, if she gets caught and it's positive, whether it's drinking or drugs, and they own up to it, they have to go. I believe they have to go through like the schooling. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And you have to make sure you test positive on. I don't know. It's like a crazy amount. I thought it was like 20 or 25 times they test you, and you have to stay negative, and then you can get your job back. Oh, well, you can keep your job. If you test positive, once you come back through all that schooling and you come back, I could have this wrong, but this is my understanding from somebody that you come back and during those whatever amount of time, if you test positive, then you can lose your job.
Yeah.
So they do give you a little leadway in a sense as a nurse and even as our aides or techs that if you test positive, as long as nothing bad happened, somebody died or anything, but I think they give you a little leeway with that.
Right. Kind of transitioning. Do you remember like the first day like COVID, which was really a real problem at your ER?
Oh, yes.
Because
COVID.
I
Wow.
think a lot of people just weren't prepared, and I remember because you live in the hot spot of our state, and where you got it in our state is the worst. And I know I wouldn't hear from you for days, and sometimes you would randomly say like, I've worked a 12-hour shift and I've been working 4 days in a row, and we're swamped.
It was wow. It's funny because I don't know why I was off or something. Maybe I just had a few days off, and I come back and I look. I'm like, it looked like a different department. I mean, it was weird. We walked in and we have these, I shouldn't call them fake drapes. What do we call them? They're like drapes and they're on metal rods and you can open them up. They're kind of to give people privacy.
Mm-hmm.
They had them around certain things and we had these doors that we have these doors that divide. We have what we call fast track area and then we have the main ER. And then between that, now the doors there, we just always kept them open but now these were shut. And now the fast track became, we call it COVID land. At least that's what I would call it, COVID land. We're in COVID land. Now it's set up. People were scared to death. Nurses were scared. Doctors were scared. Now we have to start wearing, it's bad enough wearing a mask. Now we had all this other get up. We had to wear gowns and everything else. I just remember it was the weirdest feeling. I don't even know how to describe it. And people didn't know what to do, didn't know how to act. Now all of a sudden, where we used to go in this one room and get our medicines, now we have our own little, we call it a Pyxis, where we pull our meds. Now in COVID land, now we have this little Pyxis here where we draw our meds. Now we have certain things over here, and we had bags set up if somebody somebody was dying, and we had to do certain things. We now had these bags of stuff where we used to just walk into a room and get it. Now we have these bags of stuff that we have to take outside of a room, not in a room, outside of a room, because some of this stuff is sterile. Nobody wanted to work in this area. Everybody was scared. We would go home. Myself personally, I would go home. Especially the first few nights, I would go home. I would take my clothes off once I got inside the door, because I lived in Northeast Philadelphia. But I couldn't take my clothes off outside; it wouldn't be appropriate. Mm-hmm. But I would go in. I would take my clothes off, and I would shower. I would throw my clothes in a bag.
So you kind of treated it like, and I've talked about it before. We went through bed bugs one time. So you're kind of treating it almost like that, except
correct.
Yeah.
However, I washed my stuff right away that night. I wouldn't even go to bed with my husband. I would sleep on the sofa. I felt like I was the dirty person. That's how I felt. I didn't want to. If I would have went to bed, what if I had COVID? I gave to him. People were dying left and right.
Yeah. Well, what people people don't remember, and this is now going on like 3 years now. The very beginning, no one knew anything, and the science. I mean, half the things that the scientists told us are now they went back on. Like most of the things that in the beginning that they told us is completely, a lie, and then because they just didn't know. I mean, not even a lie; just no one knew. And so I would imagine how scary it is for you and the doctors and all the other nurses to figure out what to do with this, because no one knew. Everybody was paying attention to the news, trying to figure out what to do about this. And you can't just take time and just watch the TV. You actually have to try to, be there for the patients too. So, there was not enough time to just sit around and watch for more information.
No. And the information we would get from our from management of, okay, this is treatment. Now we're going to treat it differently. This is how we're going to do, we actually, I'm telling you, that was probably as a nurse, that was one of my scariest moments. And now things are a little different. People are a lot more lax, but even we try to protect our own too. When we went in, and I was thinking about this earlier on my way down here, driving to Virginia, that we go into a room and somebody is sick. There's a lot to be, people don't realize when somebody comes in and is COVID, there's a lot to do. There's a lot of things to do. It's not just sticking a needle, draw a couple of things of blood, and out the door you go. It's not like that. There's a lot more to be done. And we try to protect our own too, because a lot of the techs would come in and their job usually consists of, which I was one, or aide, or whatever you want to call what I was before, used to do this, that they would come in and they would get vital signs, and they would do EKGs, and they would do other things that we needed. We started to keep, at the beginning, we tried to keep them out of there. We tried to minimize the amount of people in the room. I mean, from where we were and where we are now it's unbelievable how lax people are right now, but people aren't dying like they were, but people still need to keep their guard up. This is not over. Yeah. I'm telling you. I said it from the very beginning, a year into it. I said, you guys, it is not over. And it's not.
Yeah. I remember you coming up here to visit.
Yourself.
You came to visit us, and and you were like so torn back. You're so taken back by the fact that a lot of people down here weren't wearing masks, including, well, me, but also grandmother. Um, Especially the first time you came up to visit, because I remember, I think was it a family reunion? You wore a mask the whole time.
I don't remember what I was up for, but yeah,
Yeah.
I did it because I want to protect you from me, and I want to protect myself from you.
Right. Yeah.
I, just people are a little too lax on this, and unfortunately, there's a lot of people that lost a lot of lives, and a lot of family members, went through a lot through this whole thing. I mean, wow, what number are we up to now? I mean, and people are still dying. We're getting a lot of positives. We're also still getting a lot of flus that it's really late in the season, but people are still getting COVID.
Yeah. Isn't that
So
is how sad is that to like watch? Because people can't come in to visit either. So now you got patients coming in and they'll die, but there's no one there to really be there for them because they're not allowed in because of infection.
that was probably that was really really hard as a nurse. And I'll tell you, I got to tell you, there's two sides to this with nursing. Do we like a lot of our family members are can give us the hardest time. So it was a good thing not allowing a lot of people back um, to see their family because it was wow, we can go in, we can do our job, we can take care of the patient. It was just I have to say, I guess it was one less thing for us to do and not sit and not communicate with the family, but we go through a lot. We go through a lot with families, and well, I'm trying to figure out a nice way to say this, DJ. Um, Sometimes there's a lot of problems that come with families coming in. However, during the COVID or any time when somebody is really sick, rules are made to be broken in some situations.
Mm-hmm.
And when your family member is really sick, I have no problem bringing more than one person back. I think you have a right to be with your family and be there because I think you can help heal. I think a family can help heal. And even so, if they are at their end of their life, they have a right to hold their hand. Um, During COVID, we get a lot of people from nursing homes. Oh my goodness, this breaks my heart because do you know how many? Do you know
Yeah.
what was that, TJ? I heard a noise. Sorry.
I don't know where that. I don't know if that was your end or mine.
No, I don't know. But we get a lot of people from nursing homes. And do you know how many family members? And my friend Dari was one of them. That how many family members have died alone in nursing homes during COVID because they weren't allowed. And this is it's no disrespect to the nursing homes. They were doing what they were told. They were doing what they had to. But when they come to our hospital from a nursing home, I allowed the family member to come see their mother, their father that they haven't seen in months. I allowed them. Was it right? Was it wrong? I don't care. As long as you had a mask on, I had a mask on. I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
You have a right to see them, and I actually felt proud to be able to do that. For them because they haven't seen them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's got to
It
be.
was horrible.
It's got to
Hmm.
be. And I had a friend who was in a hospital and she was older and she had COVID, and I'm just trying to talk to her because there's no one's allowed to visit her. And she was really happy anyone even cared to even check on her because, she was in there for weeks and no one's allowed to see her. And just, I gotta imagine, I mean, she ended up living, but imagine how lonely they have to feel. And all they see is you guys coming in and out, and
Yeah,
they're not allowed to see anybody that cares about them. And especially when they're older like that, they're super vulnerable. And if they're at a point where they just don't feel like living anymore, maybe their body will give out because there's no one there to kind of root them on and push them to keep fighting because they just feel alone.
yeah. That's why I always allowed, like I said, the families to come in because hopefully they can, you know, it's their mother, it's their father. They have a right to see them. I mean, I think about you and how, you in the OR, and I was determined nobody's going to stop me from standing outside the OR doors, even though I wasn't supposed to be there. They told me I wasn't. I wasn't. I don't care. I would feel the same way if it was my mother. You know, I want to see her. And when I saw some of this stuff on TV where people were outside of windows at their families in homes and nursing homes and putting signs up and just doing different things, I thought that was amazing. That was amazing. You know?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, any way you can keep their spirits up. I know it's just,
Yeah.
even though it's dying down, it's just the worst parts of the pandemic was rough for many different reasons, but especially in the hospitals. I mean, at this point, I think it's pretty much it's still pretty much the
Yeah.
only place that you're supposed to wear a mask.
TJ, during this COVID, I have to tell you, there was one instance for me that as a nurse, where I got the best satisfaction. For the first time, really first time as a nurse that I felt appreciated. I walked into, and I'm not doing advertising for Wawa, but I'm just letting you know that I was walking close to my hospital that I work. I walked into the Wawa, and if I'm allowed to say that, I walked in, and I was just getting myself, I think, something to eat. I walked in full gear with my, thing I put on my head and my uniform and whatever. And I walked in, and all I was doing is trying to get, I think, something to eat or coffee or something. And somebody said, "Thank you for your service." And I almost felt like a soldier, you know?
Yeah, but you do put yourself at risk every day for...
But we don't look at it that way. That's what you don't understand. We don't look at it that way. We look at we are doing what we like and we are doing a job.
Yeah.
And, we always look for that good outcome, of course. When we have a bad outcome, we're human too. And we as nurses come across as being, I don't know if I say that, but I'm going to say it anyways, as a hard ass. We aren't. We do have a heart.
Yeah. But you see a lot of shit every day. Like, you see horrible things, regardless if someone dies or just someone coming in with chest pain. Like, you see constant, fear and pain. And at some point, like, it's got to be hard to just be bubbly and giddy all the time.
I've cried over many patients. I try to be as appropriate about it as I can and not let the patients or the family see it. I have no problem. I've many patients and many families I've given hugs to. I'm not ashamed of that. I'm not afraid of that. I think I want them to know that we do care, or I care. I can't speak for other nurses in different situations. I know how I am and how I practice. I want to think I am a caring nurse.
Yeah, I've heard good things. Yeah, you were my nurse one time, which is rare. But
I was yours?
Yeah, one time. When I was having one of my anxiety fits.
Oh, in room 12. I remember. Or 11. Sorry.
I don't know the room, but yeah.
I do.
But I mean, I've heard, even the nurses, they all say, "We love your mom and she's a great nurse." But I know a few people that were your patient and said how good you were. So.
Well, maybe they lied to you.
Well, maybe they did. I don't know. Maybe I'm lying to you.
Yeah, maybe. Wouldn't be the first time.
No. We lie to her.
Sorry, not the last.
You lie to your mother all the time. She won't. She brings it up all the time.
Well, then I'll stop having surprise birthday parties for her.
Yeah, I know. Forget gifts and nice, joyful things. She just,
I know.
Yeah, she brought it up the other day that I lied to her too much. But yeah, no, I don't know where we were going with it, but it's yeah, I just it's got to be hard not to get like desensitized to just blood and pain, because I think a lot of cops go through that, where it's like you see a lot of shootings and dead bodies. You get to a point where it's just kind of normal, and I'm sure as a nurse it's gotta get, again, even with COVID, you've seen dead bodies and you've seen, you constantly have to put needles and do all these things. At some point it just because what we were talked about in the very beginning of not trying to just be robotic and just do your job and not care about the patient, but I'm sure it also gets hard because you do see so many people on a daily basis, and you get to see so many, horrific things happen to other people. At some point, it just kind of becomes numb, unless it's, somebody in your life that you really care about.
Yeah, when you as a nurse, you go in, you do your thing, blah, blah, blah. But when when you start having like a family member coming in there and you start seeing them sad, you start feeling there's a connection, I'm not sure if I know how to describe it, but it's like a connection. Okay, now, all right, you have this person, you're taking care of them, you're doing what you have to do to try to save their life. Okay, oh, now there's a family member here. Oh, this is a mom and a daughter, and they're worried about losing their loved one. There's more of a connection. Now there's more of it for me as a nurse. Now there's more of an emotional connection. The first connection is me as a nurse and a patient. Now I'm starting to see a connection between, say, mother and daughter, and now it starts to become an emotional connection. And this is where sometimes it's easy just to put up that shield, do your job, walk out, you're done. But there's some families and some people you have this certain connection with, just like every day in life. There's certain people you connect with, certain people you can't, some people you don't give a hoot whether you do or not. But there's some people that come in the ER as a nurse, there's that certain connection that you have, and then now you start getting emotionally connected to them, if that's making sense to you.
Yeah.
I have no problem myself. I get that once that emotional connection kicks in, now I feel obligated to follow through with these patients and see if I made a difference in their life, if I saved them. If I had one guy come back to me and say to me, you just saved my life and I want to thank you. And I said, oh, what did I do? I think I remember you. You see so many faces. Usually faces I remember, names I don't. I'm bad.
Yeah.
And he said, yes. He said, I did it appropriately, that I pretty much fished him out about smoking. And he said, if I wanted to, he said, I would be dead right now. It was all about smoking. So for me as a nurse was a great feeling, because in a sense, I feel like I did save the guy's life. And also I patted myself on the back again. There's that, pat on the back again. And because as a nurse, your job is also to teach, not just to save a life, not just to put a needle in somebody, not just to give somebody blood. Your role is to teach people to make changes, to save their life. And that's what I felt like I did that day, when he did that.
Sure. Have you seen anybody, maybe not exactly like you and I's situation, but have you seen anybody that kind of reminded you of like you back when you were, taking care of me in the hospital? Is there anybody or any, maybe there's a few of them, just a parent,
Struggling,
like a mom,
struggling as a parent.
Yeah, a mom and her child. A child's going through something, and the mom is or dad, but mainly probably a mother, because you are one.
In all honesty, no, never saw a situation like ours, and I'm not saying that for any other reason. I'm just answering your question.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Well,
no.
Yeah, I'm sure some of those people probably get kicked up to a different floor anyway, but yeah, no.
I'm pretty proud of what we've accomplished. It may not seem like a lot. I think as a family, things that we struggled with, you struggled with more than any of us. I think we did pretty damn good, TJ.
Yeah.
I think whether it's me or whether it's you, I think at our low times, and maybe it sounds easier than I'm saying it. There's a lot of people out there that struggle not just with depression, with disabilities. I think sometimes we have to take a step back and look at what we have accomplished and look more in the positive than the bad. And I know it sounds easier said than done, but I think that's what we need to do. As your mother, and maybe this is the wrong time to say this, as your mom, I am extremely, extremely proud of you. I think hats off to all of you that are suffering or dealing or living with disabilities, my hat's off to you. I would like to say my home's open to all of you, but my home's not that big.
Yeah, you don't
But
want all of them.
would you say?
You don't want all of them in there. There's some crazy ones.
Well, anyway,
I went to school with a few of them.
anyway, um, we as caregivers, um,
But before you finish, when you say hats off, like you mean hats off for overcoming and enduring, because
I mean it as a good thing.
yeah. Because if it almost
Yeah.
because I don't want to like people misconstrue your words where it's like, oh, good for you for suffering. So
No,
yeah,
no,
no, I know,
no.
I
I would
know. I'm
never do
just
that. No.
we live in this sensitive world where people are so like they hear one soundbite and it's like not that my podcast is that big for that to happen, but still, like you mean for overcoming and enduring and not oh, good for you for suffering.
No, no. You know what I meant. And
Right,
yes,
right. I'm
thank
just
you for
clearing it up for
correcting
you.
me. Thank you. Yes, yes, thank you. And I believe you have somebody that might be doing a podcast, and from things that I've read about the person's family, I want to make sure I say this appropriately. It sounds like not that they were a caregiver, but they are protective. And I say this for a reason because as a caregiver, as a protector, as I was of you, my hat's off to this person I'm talking about, but whether it's our son, our brother, or sister, um, caregiver is a pretty tough role too.
Yeah.
Um, and that's probably another iPad moment. I'm iPad, sorry. What am I trying to say? Podcast, sorry. Podcast moment for you with caregivers. But
Yeah.
um,
Well, I'm sure it's
yeah.
even harder when the caregiver is the parent because
What'd you say?
it's much harder. I'm assuming for a parent who's the caregiver, like the caregiver has to be the parent because you're closer to the situation. Not that caregivers don't
Well,
care and they don't love their patients, but for a mother who obviously you got to see your kid in horrible conditions. You are the caregiver, but you're also like in love with that person. Like you don't want anything bad to happen. Whereas a caregiver,
yeah.
they care, but it's also their job. They don't have like this person isn't a part of their life. I mean, they are, but not in the way of they didn't birth that child.
You mean as caregiver, as a
They're still important and they still care. I mean, there's still a lot of great caregivers. I'm just saying I'm sure it's much. For a parent, it's got to be more, I don't know, emotional
well,
because.
it's not just about parents. I mean, I think there's brothers and sisters
Yeah. Okay. Right.
that also
Family members,
consider
loved
themselves
ones.
as caregivers, and as nurses, we're caregivers. Now you kind of threw me off because I was going
Okay.
somewhere
Sorry.
with what I was saying. Sorry,
No, you're good.
but now I forget what I was saying. Sorry, Chi.
No, it's okay. No biggie.
You know,
Yeah.
but I was saying, kind of my hats off to caregivers of all sorts, of people with disabilities, of family, that family members that are ill. I mean, there's a lot of caregivers. Just, I mean, even
The elderly.
a lot of elder,
No, you were saying what I was saying. The elderly.
elderly. Thank you. People take, look at your grandmom that took care of your grandfather. In a sense,
Yeah.
to me, she was a nurse. She
absolutely.
did what she had to do. There's a lot of caregivers out there, not just disabled, but elderly. I can't even say that.
It's okay.
But there's a lot of people out there that are caregivers, and I think my hat's off to them. And I meant that in a good way. That they do this, for their loved ones. Nursing care as a care. I don't know where it's going to go with this, but as a nurse, I am a caregiver, but in a different sense than somebody taking care of their family at home.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
Yeah, I don't know. I think we covered everything, right? Unless there's something you really want to say as far as from a nurse's perspective.
No. I just No, I think we're good.
Yeah. Well,
I think we're
so
good.
you said it earlier, but I want to say so you know so I can't speak for my sibling, but I can say that I absolutely do love you, and I think I am proud of what you have accomplished because I was there when watching you struggle with it, not just the boards, but just every day, like every class, and I mean you didn't even want to dissect a frog or whatever, what was a pig or whatever you were dissecting. That was you had a problem with that. Um, there was just I watched the ins and outs of you struggling and how you got to it, and now you've been doing this for a long time. You're talking about retirement, and obviously you're married, and you're just doing, you're literally are living the life you want to live. I mean, maybe not, it's not entirely perfect, but you wanted a shore home. Well, you said that for many years. You got a shore home now. So yeah, I mean, just as your son, obviously, I look, we've had our issues and so on, but no matter, even when I was my most upset and mad at you, I'd still would take a bullet for you in a second. Like I still would defend you and fight for you regardless. And if anybody else said something bad about you, I wouldn't entertain it. It's just, again, everybody goes through their issues. It is what it is. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm just happy that you've turned this into something because, from the very beginning of our story, of me going through SJS and you watching all that and, taking your risks for that procedure you did with your eyes to my eyes and all that, and then even going down the mental roadblock of, okay, do I actually want to be a nurse? And then you did it and you passed and you graduated and all that, and now you've been doing it for 16 years, and however long you continue to do it, like you had a lot of success and you're really good at it. So it's I'm glad to see what you've become, even though you're my mother.
And thank you for being my son.
Yay! Bullet says hi. He's right here.
Hi, Bullet.
Yay! See, he did a little rollover. You're one of the people he likes.
Are we off?
Okay. Well, yeah, we can just end this because I don't have to ask you if you have anything to promote because you're not on social media. So I guess just say goodbye to everybody and we'll end it.
Bye, everyone.